Maria had been working as a storage facility cleaner for 3 years. Every morning at 6 a.m., she would arrive at Secure Store Solutions with her cart full of cleaning supplies, ready to tackle another day of sweeping, mopping, and organizing the long corridors lined with storage units. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and gave her the peace she needed after her messy divorce. She enjoyed the quiet solitude of the empty hallways before customers arrived. Most days she could clean the entire facility without seeing another soul until the manager, Tom, showed up around 9 a.m. This particular Tuesday morning felt no different. Maria pushed her cart down aisle C, humming softly to herself as she swept up the dust and debris that seemed to accumulate overnight. The storage facility housed hundreds of units, each protected by heavy metal doors and combination locks. People stored everything imaginable here: old furniture, family heirlooms, business inventory, and sometimes things they simply couldn't bear to throw away. As she moved methodically from one end of the aisle to the other, Maria noticed something unusual near Unit C47. A black duffel bag sat against the wall, partially hidden behind a support pillar. It wasn't uncommon for customers to occasionally drop small items while loading or unloading their units. But this bag was too large and deliberately placed to be an accident. She stopped her cart and walked over to examine it more closely. The bag was expensive looking, made of thick canvas with leather trim and heavy-duty zippers. It appeared new, with no signs of wear or weather damage that would suggest it had been sitting there for days. Maria glanced around the empty corridor, wondering if perhaps a customer was nearby and had temporarily set it down. The facility had strict policies about items left in common areas. Anything found outside of rented units was supposed to be reported to management immediately and held in the lost and found office for 30 days before being disposed of. Maria had followed this procedure countless times with forgotten jackets, dropped keys, and the occasional box that customers meant to load but somehow left behind. But something about this bag felt different. Maybe it was the way it had been positioned, almost deliberately concealed. Or perhaps it was the expensive quality that made her hesitate. She called out hello several times, her voice echoing through the empty corridors, but received no response. The facility was definitely empty except for her. Maria bent down and gently moved the bag to check if there was any identification attached. No name tags, no address labels, no rental stickers that might indicate which unit it belonged to. The bag was surprisingly heavy, and she could feel the outline of various objects inside through the canvas material. Her curiosity began to grow. In 3 years of working here, she had never encountered anything quite like this. Lost items were usually obvious accidents. A coffee cup left on someone's cart, a phone dropped from a pocket, or a small tool that rolled away during loading. This bag seemed intentionally placed and carefully hidden. Maria straightened up and looked around again. The security cameras positioned throughout the facility would have recorded anyone entering with the bag, but she didn't have access to that footage. Only Tom and the owner could review the security recordings, and they wouldn't arrive for another few hours. She made a mental note of the exact location and continued with her cleaning routine, but her mind kept wandering back to the mysterious bag. Who would leave something so obviously valuable in a public area of a storage facility? Why hide it behind the pillar instead of simply taking it to their unit? And most puzzling of all, why hadn't they come back for it? As she worked her way through the rest of aisle C and moved on to aisle D, Maria found herself glancing back toward Unit C47 repeatedly. The bag seemed to call to her, representing a mystery that disrupted her normally predictable routine. She had always been a curious person, a trait that sometimes got her into trouble but also made life more interesting. By the time she finished cleaning the main corridors and moved on to the office areas, Maria had decided she would report the bag to Tom as soon as he arrived. It was the right thing to do, the professional thing to do, and exactly what the company policy required. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that this bag was going to change everything about her quiet, ordinary job. Maria couldn't concentrate on her cleaning for the rest of the morning. Every time she tried to focus on mopping the floors or emptying trash bins, her thoughts drifted back to the black duffel bag. She found herself making excuses to walk past aisle C, each time confirming that the bag was still there, untouched and waiting. When Tom finally arrived at 9:15 a.m., Maria immediately approached him in the front office. Tom was a friendly man in his 50s who had managed the facility for over a decade. He knew every regular customer by name and took pride in running a secure, well-maintained operation. "Tom, I found something this morning that I think you should know about," Maria began, trying to keep her voice casual. "There's a bag left in aisle C that doesn't seem to belong to anyone." Tom looked up from his morning coffee and nodded. "Oh, probably just someone forgot it yesterday. Happens all the time. Where exactly did you find it?" "It's by Unit C47, but it was kind of hidden behind the support pillar. And it's not like the usual stuff people drop. This bag is expensive, really heavy, and it looks like someone placed it there on purpose." Tom's expression shifted slightly, becoming more attentive. "Hidden, you say? That's odd. Let me grab the keys and we'll go take a look." They walked together through the facility toward aisle C, with Maria leading the way. She felt a strange mixture of excitement and nervousness, as if she was about to uncover something significant. Tom chatted casually as they walked, asking about her weekend and commenting on how clean the facility looked. When they reached the location, Maria pointed to the pillar where she had discovered the bag. But when they looked behind it, the space was empty. The black duffel bag was gone. Maria stared at the spot in confusion. "I don't understand. It was right here when I found it at 6:30 this morning. I've walked past this area at least 5 times since then, and it was always here." Tom examined the area carefully, looking for any signs that a bag had been there. "Are you sure this is the exact spot? Sometimes these hallways can look similar." "I'm positive," Maria insisted. "I made a mental note of the unit number because I was going to report it. C47 is right there, and the bag was sitting against this pillar." Tom scratched his head and checked his watch. "Well, whoever left it must have come back for it." "Problem solved, I guess. Thanks for being vigilant, Maria. That's exactly what we want our employees to do." But Maria wasn't satisfied with that explanation. Something didn't feel right. If someone had come back for their bag, why hadn't she seen them? She had been working in the facility the entire morning, and while she couldn't see every aisle at all times, she would have noticed someone entering and moving around. "Tom, could we check the security footage from this morning? I'd like to see who picked up the bag." Tom hesitated for a moment. "The security system has been having some issues lately. We're supposed to have a technician come out next week to fix it. I doubt we got clear footage of anything this morning." This explanation struck Maria as convenient, but she decided not to push the issue further. Tom was her boss, and she didn't want to seem overly paranoid or difficult. Still, she made a mental note to pay extra attention to aisle C during her future cleaning rounds. As they walked back toward the office, Tom seemed thoughtful. "Maria, you've been working here for a while now, and you've always been trustworthy. I want you to know that if you ever notice anything unusual or suspicious, you can always come to me. We take security very seriously here." "Of course, Tom, I understand. And Maria, sometimes customers use our facility for sensitive storage, business documents, valuable collections, things they need to keep private. We don't ask questions about what people store here as long as it's legal. But that also means we need to be extra careful about respecting their privacy." Maria nodded, though she wasn't entirely sure why Tom was telling her this. It almost sounded like he was warning her about something, or perhaps trying to discourage her from being too curious about things that didn't directly concern her. After Tom returned to his office, Maria continued with her work, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something important had happened that morning. The bag hadn't simply disappeared on its own, and she was certain she would have noticed if a customer had returned for it during normal business hours. As the day progressed and customers began arriving to access their units, Maria paid close attention to everyone who entered aisle C. She watched from a distance as people unlocked their storage units, loaded and unloaded boxes, and went about their business. None of them seemed suspicious or acted as though they had recently retrieved something they had hidden. But there was one customer who caught her attention. A tall man in an expensive suit arrived around 11 a.m. and went directly to Unit C52, just 5 units down from where she had found the bag. He spent only a few minutes inside his unit and left quickly, barely acknowledging her presence when their paths crossed in the hallway. Something about his behavior seemed rushed and nervous, completely different from the relaxed pace of most customers who treated their storage visits as casual errands. Maria watched through the window as he drove away in a black sedan with tinted windows. She wondered if there was any connection between this man and the mysterious bag, but she had no way to prove it. All she knew for certain was that her quiet, predictable job had suddenly become much more interesting and possibly much more complicated. Over the next few days, Maria found herself paying much closer attention to the patterns and rhythms of the storage facility. She began to notice things she had previously overlooked during her 3 years of routine cleaning. Certain customers always arrived at specific times. Some units were accessed frequently while others seemed abandoned, and there were subtle signs of activity that most people would miss. Thursday morning brought another surprise. While cleaning the restroom near the front entrance, Maria overheard a heated phone conversation. Tom was in his office with the door slightly open, speaking in hushed but agitated tones. "No, I told you she found it but didn't open it. My employee is trustworthy, but she's not stupid. We can't have any more slip-ups like this." There was a pause as he listened to whoever was on the other end. "I don't care about your timeline. If you want to keep using this facility, you need to be more careful about your procedures." Maria froze, pretending to focus intently on cleaning the mirror while straining to hear more of the conversation. She was almost certain Tom was talking about the black duffel bag incident. "Look, Maria's been here for 3 years and never caused any problems. She follows protocol, minds her own business, and does good work. But if she starts asking too many questions or notices too many coincidences, we'll have a problem." Another pause. "Yes, I can handle it. Just make sure your people are more discreet next time." The conversation ended abruptly, and Maria heard Tom's chair creak as he hung up the phone. She quickly finished cleaning the restroom and hurried away before he could discover she had been listening. Her heart was racing as she tried to process what she had overheard. It was clear that Tom knew more about the mysterious bag than he had let on. The conversation suggested there was some kind of ongoing arrangement involving the storage facility, and Maria was now seen as a potential threat to whatever operation was taking place. For the rest of the day, Maria went through the motions of her cleaning routine while her mind raced with questions and possibilities. She had always trusted Tom and considered him a good boss, but now she wondered what else might be happening at the facility that she didn't know about. That evening, instead of going straight home after work, Maria decided to drive around the neighborhood and observe the storage facility from the outside. She parked across the street and watched as the last customers left for the day. Tom locked up the front office at 6 p.m. and drove away in his pickup truck, just as he did every evening. But 20 minutes later, Maria was surprised to see activity at the facility's rear entrance. A dark van pulled up to the loading dock and 2 men got out. They used a key to enter through the back door, suggesting they had legitimate access to the building. Maria watched from her car as they made several trips between the van and the building, carrying what appeared to be boxes or containers. The entire operation took about 30 minutes, and then they locked up and drove away. None of this activity would have been visible from the front of the building or during normal business hours. The next morning, Maria arrived at work with a new sense of purpose. She had decided to conduct her own quiet investigation, being careful not to alert Tom to her suspicions. During her cleaning routine, she paid special attention to any areas that might have been disturbed overnight. In aisle F, near the rear of the building, she noticed that the floor seemed cleaner than usual in front of several units. Someone had clearly swept or mopped the area recently, removing any traces of dirt or debris that might have been tracked in from outside. This was odd because Maria always cleaned every aisle thoroughly, and she hadn't cleaned aisle F since Wednesday. She also noticed that Unit F23 had a different lock than she remembered. Storage facility customers were required to use their own locks, and she had become familiar with the various types and brands used throughout the building. The lock on F23 was now a heavy-duty military-style padlock, much more substantial than the simple combination lock that had been there before. Maria made mental notes of these observations but continued with her normal routine. She didn't want to do anything that might alert Tom or whoever else was involved in the nighttime activities. However, she did start carrying her phone with her and discreetly taking photos of anything that seemed unusual or out of place. Around 10 a.m., the tall man in the expensive suit returned. This time Maria was ready. She positioned herself where she could observe his activities without being obvious about it. He went directly to Unit C52, just as he had earlier in the week. But this time he spent much longer inside. Through careful observation, Maria noticed that he made multiple trips to his car, carrying small packages each time. Whatever he was doing required frequent transfers of items between his storage unit and his vehicle. His behavior was methodical and professional, like someone executing a well-practiced routine. When he finally left, Maria waited a few minutes and then casually walked past Unit C-52. The lock appeared undisturbed, and there was no obvious evidence of the activity she had witnessed, but she did notice a small piece of torn plastic on the ground near the unit door, as if something had been unwrapped hastily. As the day continued, Maria began to realize that she was probably witnessing some kind of illegal operation. The secrecy, the after-hours activity, Tom's suspicious phone conversation, and the careful behavior of certain customers all pointed to something more serious than simple storage rental violations. She found herself facing a difficult decision. Should she report her suspicions to the police, confront Tom directly, or continue observing and gathering evidence? Each option carried risks, and she wasn't sure how deep this operation went or who else might be involved. What she did know was that her quiet job as a storage facility cleaner had unexpectedly placed her in the middle of something dangerous, and there was no easy way to extract herself from the situation. Maria decided that gathering more evidence was her safest option before taking any drastic action. She began documenting everything she observed, using her phone to discreetly photograph license plates, unusual activities, and anything that seemed connected to the mysterious operations at the facility. Over the weekend, she researched the storage facility's ownership and business history online. Secure Store Solutions had been operating for 12 years and appeared to be a legitimate business with good customer reviews. However, she discovered that the facility had changed ownership twice in the past 5 years, which seemed unusual for a stable storage business. Monday morning brought a new development that made Maria's investigation much more personal and dangerous. When she arrived at work, Tom was waiting for her in the front office with a serious expression. "Maria, we need to talk," he said, gesturing for her to sit down across from his desk. "I've been getting some complaints about an employee asking questions and poking around areas that aren't part of their job responsibilities." Maria felt her stomach drop, but she tried to maintain a calm exterior. "I'm not sure what you mean, Tom. I've just been doing my regular cleaning routine." "Look, I like you, Maria. You've been a good employee, and I don't want to lose you. But I need you to understand that some of our customers value their privacy very highly. They pay premium rates for secure, discreet storage, and part of what they're paying for is the assurance that our staff won't interfere with their business." Tom leaned forward in his chair, his tone becoming more serious. "I'm going to be very clear with you. Your job is to clean the facility and maintain the common areas. That's it. You're not security, you're not management, and you're definitely not law enforcement. If you see something that concerns you, you report it to me, and I handle it from there." "Of course, Tom, I understand my role here." "Good, because I'd hate for there to be any misunderstandings that might affect your employment. You've got a good thing here, Maria. Steady work, decent pay, minimal supervision. It would be a shame to jeopardize that over curiosity about things that don't concern you." The threat was clear, even though Tom had delivered it in a friendly tone. Maria nodded and assured him that she would focus solely on her cleaning duties. But as she left his office and began her work routine, she realized that her investigation had already been noticed and that continuing it would put her job and possibly her safety at risk. Despite the warning, Maria couldn't simply ignore what she had witnessed. She decided to be more careful and subtle in her observations while continuing to document suspicious activities. She also began researching what she should do if her suspicions about illegal operations were confirmed. That afternoon, while cleaning near the rear of the building, Maria heard vehicles approaching the back entrance again. It was unusual for after-hours activity to occur during the day, so she quickly found a position where she could observe without being seen. This time, instead of the dark van, a refrigerated truck pulled up to the loading dock. 2 different men got out and began unloading what appeared to be white containers or boxes, using a hand truck to transport them into the building. The operation was quick and efficient, suggesting these men were familiar with the facility's layout. What alarmed Maria most was that Tom appeared from inside the building to supervise the unloading. He spoke briefly with the truck driver, handed him an envelope, and helped guide the containers to their destination. This confirmed that Tom was not just aware of these operations but was actively participating in them. After the truck left, Maria waited several minutes before venturing toward the area where she had seen the activity. She noticed that the containers had been taken to aisle F, the same area where she had observed the unusual cleanliness and new locks earlier in the week. As she approached aisle F during her normal cleaning routine, Tom suddenly appeared from around a corner, startling her. "Maria, what brings you to this area today? I thought you usually cleaned aisles A through D on Mondays." "I'm just catching up on some areas I missed last week," she replied, trying to sound casual. "I like to make sure the whole facility stays clean." Tom studied her face for a moment as if trying to determine whether she was telling the truth. "That's very thorough of you, but I think the front aisles probably need more attention, since that's what customers see first when they visit." It was clearly a suggestion for her to leave the area, so Maria nodded and moved her cleaning cart toward the front of the building, but not before she noticed that several units in aisle F now had the same heavy-duty military-style locks she had observed on unit F23. That evening, Maria made a decision that would change everything. She called the FBI tip line from her home phone and reported her suspicions about illegal activities at the storage facility. She provided details about the after-hours deliveries, the suspicious customer behavior, and Tom's obvious involvement in coordinating whatever was happening. The FBI agent who took her call was professional and thorough, asking detailed questions about what she had observed and requesting that she document any future activities. He also warned her to be extremely careful and not to take any actions that might put her in danger. "Ma'am, if your suspicions are correct, you could be dealing with very dangerous people. Continue your normal work routine, but don't investigate further on your own. We'll look into this matter, but it may take some time to develop a proper response." After hanging up, Maria felt both relief and terror. She had done the right thing by reporting her suspicions, but she also realized that she was now in a very precarious position. If Tom or his associates discovered that she had contacted law enforcement, her safety would be seriously compromised. She spent a sleepless night wondering if she had made the right decision and trying to prepare herself for whatever might happen next. Her quiet life as a storage facility cleaner was definitely over, but she had no idea what would replace it. Tuesday morning arrived with an atmosphere of tension that Maria could feel as soon as she entered the storage facility. Tom greeted her with a forced smile, but his eyes were watchful and suspicious. She had the uncomfortable feeling that he was studying her every move, looking for signs that she might be planning something. Maria tried to maintain her normal routine, but it was difficult to act naturally when she felt like she was being constantly observed. She focused on her cleaning tasks while keeping mental notes of any unusual activities, but she was careful not to linger in areas where she might appear to be investigating. Around 10 a.m., she noticed 2 new customers in the facility who didn't behave like typical storage renters. They were well-dressed, alert, and seemed to be paying more attention to the facility's layout and security features than to any particular storage unit. When one of them made eye contact with her, he held her gaze a moment too long, as if memorizing her face. These men spoke quietly with Tom in his office for about 15 minutes before leaving without accessing any storage units. Their visit felt more like a security consultation than a customer interaction, and Maria wondered if Tom had called them because of concerns about her behavior. Her suspicions were confirmed later that morning when Tom approached her while she was cleaning the restroom area. "Maria, I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday, and I realize I may have been too vague about the importance of discretion in this job. Let me be more specific about what that means." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Some of our customers are involved in businesses that require absolute confidentiality. Import and export operations, private collection storage, things like that. They pay premium rates because they trust us to provide security and privacy that they can't get elsewhere." "I understand, Tom. I hope you do, because these aren't the kind of customers you want to disappoint or worry. They have zero tolerance for employees who ask questions or show too much curiosity about their affairs. And frankly, they have ways of dealing with problems that go far beyond simply filing a complaint with management." The threat was much more direct this time, and Maria felt a chill run down her spine. Tom was essentially telling her that her life could be in danger if she continued investigating the facility's operations. "Tom, I want you to know that I have no interest in anyone's private business. I just want to do my job and go home safely every day." "Good. I'm glad we understand each other. Oh, and Maria, if anyone ever approaches you asking questions about the facility or our customers, I need you to let me know immediately. Law enforcement, reporters, anyone. We have procedures for handling those situations." After Tom returned to his office, Maria realized that her contact with the FBI had probably not gone unnoticed. Either they had already begun investigating the facility, or Tom's criminal associates had ways of monitoring law enforcement activity. Either way, her position was becoming increasingly dangerous. She decided to be extra cautious for the rest of the day, but events beyond her control were already in motion. Around 2 p.m., while she was cleaning an aisle A, she heard the sound of multiple vehicles arriving outside. Through the front windows, she could see several black SUVs and what appeared to be law enforcement vehicles surrounding the building. Tom emerged from his office looking panicked and angry. He spotted Maria and quickly approached her. "Did you call someone? Did you report something to the police?" His voice was harsh and accusatory. Before Maria could respond, the front door burst open and several FBI agents in tactical gear entered the building. The lead agent announced loudly that they had a federal search warrant and ordered everyone to remain calm and cooperate. "Maria Gonzalez," one of the agents called out, "we need you to come with us for your own protection." Tom's face went white with rage as he realized that Maria had indeed been the source of the investigation. "You have no idea what you've done," he hissed at her as the FBI agents positioned themselves between them. The next several hours were a blur of activity as federal agents systematically searched the storage facility. Maria was taken to a safe location where she was debriefed by FBI investigators who thanked her for her courage in reporting the suspicious activities. What she learned during the debriefing was far more serious than she had imagined. The storage facility was being used as a distribution hub for a major human trafficking operation. The containers she had seen being delivered contained people who were being transported illegally across the country, and the facility served as a temporary holding and processing location. The expensive customers she had observed were not storing valuables or business inventory. They were part of a criminal network that moved victims from one location to another, using the storage facility's legitimate business operations as cover for their illegal activities. "Your observations and your willingness to report what you saw likely saved lives," the lead FBI agent told her. "This operation has been running for over 2 years, and we estimate that hundreds of victims have passed through this facility." Tom and several associates were arrested during the raid, along with the 2 men Maria had seen making deliveries. The investigation would eventually lead to the dismantling of a trafficking network that extended across multiple states. But for Maria, the immediate concern was her safety. The FBI warned her that other members of the criminal organization who had not been arrested might seek revenge against her for exposing the operation. "We're going to relocate you temporarily while we round up the rest of the network," the agent explained. "You did the right thing, Ms. Gonzalez. But that doesn't mean you're safe yet." As Maria packed a few belongings from her apartment that evening, under FBI protection, she reflected on how dramatically her life had changed in just 1 week. Finding that black duffel bag had set in motion a chain of events that transformed her from a quiet storage facility cleaner into a key witness in a major federal investigation. She felt proud of her courage in reporting the criminal activity, but she also felt scared and uncertain about what her future would hold. The safe house where the FBI relocated Maria was a modest apartment in a quiet suburb, about 2 hours away from the storage facility. For the first few days, she was accompanied by a female agent named Sarah Chen, who helped her adjust to the temporary arrangement and explained what would happen next. "The investigation is moving quickly," Agent Chen told her. "We've arrested 12 people so far, including Tom and the facility's actual owner. But we know there are more people involved, and some of them are still at large." Maria learned that the black duffel bag she had discovered contained communication equipment, cash, and documents related to the trafficking operation. Someone had hidden it temporarily during a transfer operation, planning to retrieve it later. Her discovery of the bag had disrupted their schedule and forced them to retrieve it quickly, which is why it had disappeared so suddenly. "Your attention to detail and your willingness to trust your instincts made all the difference," Agent Chen explained. "Most people would have just reported the bag to their supervisor and forgotten about it. But you noticed the patterns, documented what you saw, and recognized that something wasn't right." During her time in the safe house, Maria was visited by other FBI agents who showed her photographs and asked her to identify people she had seen at the storage facility. She was able to provide positive identifications for several suspects, including the tall man in the expensive suit who turned out to be a key organizer in the trafficking network. The scope of the criminal operation was larger than Maria had imagined. The storage facility was just one of several locations used by the trafficking ring, which had been operating for over 4 years and had connections to organized crime groups in multiple countries. Victims were primarily young women and children who had been kidnapped or lured away from their families with false promises of legitimate work. The storage units were used as temporary holding areas, Agent Chen explained. Victims would be kept there for a few days while transportation to their final destinations was arranged. The facility's remote location and minimal oversight made it ideal for this purpose. Maria felt sick thinking about the suffering that had been happening so close to where she worked every day. She was grateful that her actions had helped stop the operation, but she also felt guilty about not recognizing the signs sooner. 2 weeks into her stay at the safe house, Maria received news that would change her perspective on everything that had happened. Agent Chen arrived with a special visitor, a young woman named Elena who appeared to be in her early 20s. "Maria, I'd like you to meet someone whose life you helped save," Agent Chen said. Elena had been one of the victims held at the storage facility just 3 days before Maria discovered the black duffel bag. She had been kidnapped from her home in another state and was being transported to what her captors claimed would be a legitimate job opportunity. Instead, she found herself imprisoned in Unit F-23, the same unit where Maria had noticed the new heavy-duty lock. "I heard voices outside during the day," Elena told Maria through tears. "I heard someone moving around, cleaning, going about normal business. I wanted to scream for help, but they told me they would kill me if I made any noise." Elena explained that she and 2 other victims had been moved out of the facility just hours before the FBI raid. They were rescued from another location 2 days later, but only because the investigation that started with Maria's observations had given law enforcement the information they needed to track down the rest of the network. "If you hadn't noticed that bag and started paying attention to what was happening, I might never have been found," Elena said. "The FBI agent told me that your phone call started the investigation that saved us." Meeting Elena gave Maria a powerful sense of purpose and validation for the risks she had taken. She realized that her decision to trust her instincts and report suspicious activity had literally saved lives, including Elena's. Over the following weeks, as the FBI investigation continued and more arrests were made, Maria learned about the extensive support network that existed for trafficking victims. Elena and the other rescued victims were receiving counseling, medical care, and assistance in rebuilding their lives. Some were able to return to their families, while others needed help establishing new identities and finding safe places to live. Maria also learned that she would be eligible for a federal witness protection program if ongoing threats to her safety made it necessary. However, the FBI was optimistic that arresting the leadership of the trafficking network would eliminate most of the danger she faced. "We've dismantled their entire operation," Agent Chen told her. "The few remaining suspects are more concerned with avoiding capture than seeking revenge. But we'll continue monitoring the situation and providing protection as long as necessary." After a month in the safe house, Maria was given the option to return to her normal life or relocate permanently to a new city with assistance from the federal government. The decision was difficult because both options represented significant changes from the quiet, predictable life she had known before discovering the black duffel bag. She thought about Elena and the other victims whose lives had been saved because she had paid attention and taken action. She thought about the dozens of other people who might have been trafficked through the storage facility if the operation had continued. And she thought about the courage it had taken to trust her instincts when everyone around her was telling her to mind her own business. Maria realized that she had discovered something important about herself during this ordeal. She was stronger and braver than she had ever known, and she was capable of making a real difference in the world when circumstances demanded it. After careful consideration, Maria decided to accept the FBI's offer to relocate to a new city with their assistance. The trafficking network had extensive connections, and even though the main operation had been dismantled, she felt safer starting fresh somewhere new rather than returning to her old life where she might be recognized. The FBI helped her move to Denver, Colorado, where she found work with a nonprofit organization that provided support services to victims of human trafficking. Her experience with the storage facility investigation, combined with her natural attention to detail and courage under pressure, made her an ideal candidate for helping other survivors rebuild their lives. In her new role, Maria worked directly with women and children who had been rescued from trafficking situations. She helped them navigate the complex process of recovery, from finding safe housing and medical care to accessing legal assistance and job training programs. Her own experience of having her life turned upside down by the investigation gave her a unique understanding of what it meant to start over completely. 6 months after the move, Maria received a letter that brought both closure and validation to her experience. It was from Elena, the young woman she had met at the safe house, who wanted to update her on how her life was progressing. Elena had successfully reunited with her family and was attending college on a scholarship provided by a foundation that supported trafficking survivors. She had also become an advocate for other victims, speaking at awareness events and working with law enforcement to identify and prevent trafficking operations. "I think about you often," Elena wrote. "You showed incredible courage by trusting your instincts and refusing to ignore what you saw. Your willingness to get involved, even when it was dangerous, gave me and many others a second chance at life. I hope you know how much that means to all of us." The letter also included updates on the legal proceedings against the trafficking network. Tom had been sentenced to 25 years in federal prison, and several other key figures in the operation received similar sentences. The storage facility had been permanently shut down, and the property was being converted into a community center that would provide services to at-risk youth. Maria kept Elena's letter on her desk at work, where it served as a daily reminder of why her new career was so important. She had discovered that helping trafficking survivors gave her life a sense of purpose and meaning that she had never experienced. During her years of routine cleaning work, her colleagues at the nonprofit organization soon recognized her exceptional skills in connecting with survivors and helping them navigate their recovery process. Maria's genuine empathy, combined with her practical experience of having her own life disrupted and rebuilt, made her particularly effective in her new role. A year after starting her new job, Maria was promoted to supervisor of the Survivor Services Department. She now managed a team of counselors and caseworkers who provided comprehensive support to trafficking victims throughout the Denver area. The work was emotionally challenging, but Maria found it deeply rewarding to see survivors gradually rebuild their confidence and reclaim control over their lives. During quiet moments at work, Maria sometimes reflected on how dramatically her life had changed because of that single morning when she discovered a black duffel bag that didn't belong to any storage unit. What had started as routine cleanup had ultimately led her to uncover a major criminal operation, save multiple lives, and find her true calling as an advocate for trafficking survivors. She realized that the courage she had shown during the investigation wasn't something she had suddenly developed. It had always been part of her character, waiting for the right circumstances to emerge. The experience had taught her that ordinary people in ordinary jobs often have the power to make extraordinary differences in the world, but only if they pay attention to what's happening around them and have the courage to act when action is needed. Maria's story became well known within the anti-trafficking community, and she was occasionally invited to speak at conferences and training sessions for law enforcement officers. She always emphasized the same key points. Trust your instincts when something doesn't feel right. Document what you observe, and don't let anyone discourage you from reporting suspicious activities. Most people who commit crimes count on others to mind their own business and not get involved, she would tell audiences. But when ordinary citizens refuse to look the away and instead choose to pay attention and take action, they can disrupt even the most sophisticated criminal operations. 3 years after the storage facility investigation, Maria received news that the FBI had successfully dismantled 2 additional trafficking networks using information and techniques developed during their investigation of secure store solutions. The methods that law enforcement had learned from analyzing her observations and the facility's operations had been applied to other cases, resulting in dozens of additional arrests and the rescue of more than 100 victims. Maria understood that her decision to investigate that mysterious black duffel bag had created ripple effects that extended far beyond her own experience. By choosing courage over comfort and action over inaction, she had helped create a safer world for countless people she would never meet. Her quiet life as a storage facility cleaner was now a distant memory, replaced by meaningful work that gave her a sense of purpose and fulfillment she had never imagined possible. Maria had learned that sometimes the most important moments in life come disguised as routine circumstances, and that extraordinary opportunities for heroism can emerge from the most ordinary situations.